Yates was born in Halesville, Texas. She is the youngest of 5 children to Jetta Karen Kohler, a German immigrant, and Andrew Emmett Kennedy, whose parents were Irish immigrants. She was bulimic during her teenage years. She also suffered from depression and, at the age of 17, spoke to a friend about suicide. She graduated from Milby High School, in Houston, in 1982. She was the class valedictorian, captain of the swim team, and an officer in the National Honor Society. Yates completed a 2-year pre-nursing program at the University of Houston and graduated from the University of Texas School of Nursing. From 1986 until 1994, she worked as a registered nurse at the University of Texas Maryland Anderson Cancer Center. In the summer of 1989, she met Rusty, Yates at the Sunscape Apartments in Houston, 2 months her junior. They soon moved in together and were married on April 17, 1993. They announced that they would seek to have as many babies as nature allowed. Afterwards, they bought a 4-bedroom house in Friendswood. In February 1994, their first child, Noah, was born. Shortly thereafter, Rusty accepted a job offer in Florida, so they relocated to a small trailer in Seminole. By the birth of their 3rd son, Paul, they moved back to Houston and purchased a GMC motorhome. Following the birth of their 4th son, Luke, Yates became depressed. The media alleged that her condition was influenced by the extremist sermons of Michael Peter Woronitsky, the preacher who sold them their bus. Her family was concerned by the way that she was so captivated by the minister's words. On June 16, 1999, Rusty found Andrea shaking and chewing her fingers. The next day, she attempted to commit suicide by overdosing on pills. She was admitted to the hospital and prescribed antidepressants. Soon after her release, she begged her husband to let her die as she held a knife up to her neck. Once again hospitalized, she was given a mixture of medications including Haldol, an antipsychotic drug. Her condition improved immediately and she was prescribed it on her release. After that, Rusty moved the family into a small house for the sake of her health. She appeared temporarily stabilized. In July 1999, she succumbed to a nervous breakdown, which culminated in 2 suicide attempts and 2 psychiatric hospitalizations that summer. She was diagnosed with postpartum psychosis. Yates' first psychiatrist, Dr. Eileen Starbranch, testified that she urged the couple not to have more children, as it would guarantee future psychotic depression. They conceived their 5th and final child approximately 7 weeks after her discharge. She stopped taking the Haldol in March 2000 and gave birth to daughter Mary on November 30 of that year. She seemed to be coping well until the death of her father on March 12, 2001. Yates then stopped taking medication, mutilated herself, and read the Bible feverishly. She also stopped feeding her youngest child, Mary. She became so incapacitated that she required immediate hospitalization. On April 1, 2001, she came under the care of Dr. Mohammed Saeed. She was treated and released. On May 3, 2001, she degenerated back into a near-catatonic state and drew a bath in the middle of the day. She would later confess to police that she had planned to drown the children that day, but had decided against doing it then. She was hospitalized the next day after a scheduled doctor visit. Her psychiatrist determined she was probably suicidal and had filled the tub to drown herself. Yates continued under Dr. Saeed's care until June 20, 2001, when Rusty left for work, leaving her alone to watch the children against Dr. Saeed's instructions to supervise her round the clock. His mother, Dora Yates, had been scheduled by him to arrive an hour later to take over for her. In the space of that hour, Andrea drowned all 5 children. She started with John, Paul and Luke, and after drowning them, laid them in her bed. She then drowned Mary, whom she left floating in the tub. Noah came in and asked what was wrong with Mary. He then ran, but she soon caught and drowned him. She then left him floating in the tub and laid Mary and John's arm in the bed. She then called the police repeatedly saying she needed an officer but would not say why. Then she called Rusty, telling him he needed to come home right away. Yates confessed to drowning her children. Prior to her second trial, she told Dr. Michael Wellner that she waited for Rusty to leave for work that morning before filling the bathtub because she knew he would have prevented her from harming them. After the killings, police found the family dog locked up. Rusty advised Wellner that it had normally been allowed to run free, and was so when he had left the house that morning, leading the psychiatrist to allege that she locked it in a cage to prevent it from interfering with her killing the children one by one. Rusty got a family friend, George Parnham, to act as her attorney. Although the defense's expert testimony agreed that Yates was psychotic, Texas law requires that, in order to successfully assert the insanity defense, the defendant must prove that he or she could not discern right from wrong at the time of the crime. In March 2002, a jury rejected the insanity defense and found her guilty. Although the prosecution had sought the death penalty, the jury refused that option. The trial court sentenced her to life imprisonment in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice with eligibility for parole in 40 years. On January 6, 2005, a Texas Court of Appeals reversed the convictions, because California psychiatrist and prosecution witness Dr. Park Dietz admitted he had given material of false testimony during the trial. In his testimony, Dietz had stated that shortly before the killings, an episode of Law and Order had aired featuring a woman who drowned her children and was acquitted of murder by reason of insanity. Author, and later Yale University lecturer, Suzanne O'Malley, was covering the trial for the Oprah magazine, the New York Times Magazine and NBC News. She had previously been a writer for Law and Order and immediately reported that no such episode existed. The appellate court held unanimously that the jury might have been influenced by Dietz's false testimony and that therefore a new trial would be necessary. On January 9, 2006, Yates again entered pleas of not guilty by reason of insanity. On February 1, 2006, she was granted release on bail on the condition that she be admitted to a mental health treatment facility. On July 26, 2006, after 3 days of deliberations, Yates was found not guilty by reason of insanity, as defined by the state of Texas. She was thereafter committed to the North Texas State Hospital Vernon campus. In January 2007, Yates was moved to a low-security state mental hospital in Kerrville. Although psychiatrists for both the Texas state prosecutors and her defense lawyers agreed that she was severely mentally ill with one of several psychotic diseases at the time she killed her children, the state of Texas asserted that she was by legal definition aware enough to judge her actions as right or wrong despite her mental defects. The prosecution further implied spousal revenge as motive for the killings, despite the conclusion of defense experts that there was no evidence to support such a motive. Although the original jury believed she was legally aware of her actions, they disagreed that her motive was spousal revenge. The jury in 2006 completely disagreed with the prosecution's assertions and her earlier conviction from 2002 was overturned.